Hello, hello. You may be wondering, what is this? Well, we are going back to our montages, and we are going to be doing retrospectives and discussing development of each and every single one of them. Ahead of doing part 3 of Kinkou Gaiden. And yeah, as we start these, well, from the early ones, it'll be pretty short and straightforward. However, more mid and later ones, those are going to have more in depth. As usual, there'll be timestamps. So kick back and come and chill with me while we talk about this. Okay, so let's start off with the Ionia Canon Karthus montage. So, first off, did anybody get the joke inside the title? There is a joke here that I don't think anybody would have gotten unless I explained it right now. The title is a Spaceballs reference, because all the merchandising jokes in there were titled Spaceballs the X or Spaceballs the Y. This is a Spaceballs joke. It is one I think was just way too subtle. I don't think anybody got it. And if you did, you're only saying it because I'm telling you, yes, this was a Spaceballs joke. Alright, so I gotta talk about the thumbnail. This is actually a meme image I posted back during I think it was Empyrean Arena. This is derived from when I was told on a Discord about the Ionia Canon build, which is what you see in this video. It is all about building around the ult, taking the Axiom Arc, and stacking, instead of going for CDR or something, stack for the one shot. And I can't remember exactly what I thought, what caused it, but I thought combine the Yakuza essence of orbital laser with the Command and Conquer Ion Cannon, as well as that's the general thought. And this is the very first one we did with while we were trying to figure out exactly what we were doing, like were we including sound effects, were we going to be doing what was our standard format going to be. And well, here it is. These this and the Darius ones, these are our earliest ones. And we can see how there's some things in it we incorporated much later on into the series. So yeah. And I'll say I remember seeing it, maybe posting it up on April 1st, and I was like, this isn't a joke, this is actually a viable thing. I was thinking that in my head. And some of this is something else I don't think I've disclosed it, but some of this was inspired by Spawn Karthus all the way back in season 1. And honestly, I kind of wanted to do a Karthus montage set to that as a tribute to Sefzanj. I can't pronounce his name, but we know the guy. Spawn Karthus, the meme, the Ultra meme. But I figured he kind of retired it. He retired. It means nobody else can do that because he set the standard. Nobody else can do that very specific combo. It is what it is. I thought about it, but it'd be like ripping him off, But yeah, nobody else could do that if you ask me. I mean, people are welcome to do it. I mean, I'm sure not like anybody can really stop them. Stop people from copying him. But I feel like he's the one who did it. Nobody else can do it because nobody's going to do it better, even though it is a season 1 meme. So let's talk about Darius. Darius, well, we were following along what we were doing, with the Karthus montage, and I honestly, I think I overdid the sound effects. And plus, there was some footage that I couldn't fit into it because I was using but with this and the Karthus as well as the Diana one, I was limiting myself unnecessarily. I was excising clips and all that, making sure I could fit within the the audio runtime. I shouldn't have done that. Like, if you look at my more recent ones, you see I could do much better than that now. I have better ideas, and I could have done much more of that, so I am sorry. And you'll notice there's a volume 1 in it. I did intend to do more Darius ones. I ended up using the leftover Darius footage for other things. As a fun fact, the Darius footage I collected from this, what was left over, you want to know where it went? It went into the Noxus and Ionia footage. So if you're wondering, the footage here, or rather the footage that was there, was meant to be in Volume 2 originally of a Darius sequel. So that was the earliest I started saving some footage. That way, if I ever had a desire to do a montage or a segment with a champion, I already had some stuff cut. So yeah, that is it for Season 0. Let's talk about Season 1. Okay, so now we're talking about the start of Season 1 of the montages. Now, this is one that has a little bit of history behind it. Mostly because for a long time I thought, hey, what if I did a Diana montage set to, dedicated by Moonlight, the Menfina battle music? Well, the thing is, until I started doing these montages, I just never got off my ass to do it. And this is also a victim of what I was saying a few minutes ago about being too limited to, sticking within the music. I would have done this one much better now. And I will say, one of the suggestions I had about this, or rather, that I was given, by an associate who was helping me do this because I was so new to it, suggested lining up the kills to the musical beats. And I honestly wish I had understood that better. But I think because of the way the clips are set up, I don't think I could have done it. It would not have come out right. It's a great idea. I just don't think I could have done it correctly. Not to mention I would have had to, dice up clips, and I think I would have made it look all disjointed and schizo as hell. So yeah, it was a great idea, but I don't think I could have executed it. And as you can tell from the thumbnail, this actually uses the pre-Lunari Diana, as a thumbnail. This is also something we kept in mind when we were devising Leona's. We'll talk about that more when we get to Leona's. But I will say also, I'm probably going to redo this one. I think we based on what we know now, we can make this better. Maybe redoing Leona and as well, combine the two, Sun and the Moon, something like that, something dramatic. Not necessarily Leona versus Diana, but I mean, it's a possibility. I'm just saying, those two are candidates for remaking. Just because I know more about what I want to do now than I would have back then. But most likely I will at least redo Diana's, because I think I could do that one better now. So Ashe, well, early on I wasn't really thinking like a hard schedule or anything. These were all random ideas based on ideas from, crossing over from 14. And something I should have said at the start now is one of the biggest things with these montages, I want you, my viewers, to be exposed to music you normally would not be exposed to. And I'll talk about this when I get to the Sona one, more, but, there was a comment on that one, talk about staying for the gameplay, coming for the gameplay, staying for the music. That's the general idea. I want you all to see these music tracks that you may not normally ever see outside of watching VODs or something. But yeah. So Ashe, this is at this point, this is our longest one, right? This is where I'm starting to get more comfortable with using multiple phases, and unlike the Diana one, I did not include a voice clip, and I should have kept that because it would have worked better. And yeah, This is still a smaller, montage versus what we do much later on. Hell, within a couple of months, we're actually going by this July 1st. Within the same month, we are doing longer ones. And yeah, so I had to come up with some kind of. It took a while to figure out what kind of, name we should go with and theme. Originally, it was just going to be, the Footsteps in the Snow, which is the Phase 1 Shiva music. It would have been called, the montage would have been called Footsteps in the Freljord. And honestly, I think I could have done this better too. I could have done this as if I thought about it at the time, I could have done this as a Freljord montage. It could have been Ashe versus Sedrani versus Lysandra. It is something I could have done. I didn't, like looking back at it now, I could have done this as a Freljord montage. And I might do that in the future. And note that some of you may people who play 14 in League may notice I used the Reen version, the Eden's Refulgence. I could have done Oblivion, the regular one. We did, however, use that later in the dance party. And we're going to talk about that one when we get to it, because there's a lot of good jokes there. I can't wait to talk about that one, really. And as you notice, we are doing these in order. So, honestly, I think that's about it for the Ashe montage. I don't think there's really anything else I want to talk about. Oh, and as I pointed this out in the video, I chose the Realm Reborn Shiva because at the time, it was easier to edit it. There were tricks that I learned later during Garen and Morty and the dance party that I could have done here. And I could have used the Reen one. So that is something, I learned later on. I could have done much better on the editing. So yeah, I admit it. A lot of these I could have done this or that so much better. All right, so here we go. Now we're going to talk about the Gwen montage. This is a different, at this point we were doing League crossing over with 14, right? Well, this was a change up. Gwen and the Twisted Marionette. Now, this is me experimenting more with longer, again, same as the Ashe one, and mixing two different areas together, Brawl and Arena. And I wish I did the second half so much better. There's things I could have done better. I don't have Guild Wars installed, so, and nowadays this is a rotating event rather than being hard locked off to only people who played it back in 2013. And meaning you could just wait for it to come up in the rotation, go in, get a cutscene. I could have done that. And it would have been so much better looking. I think this is not a good looking one. Same with the lack of voice clips. And yeah, there's honestly not that much to say here. It is still early on in our learning of how to work at DaVinci Resolve and more. I do like how I ended it. The whole "I warned you." That is when the map fails. In the Twisted Marionette event is considered a failure. Hits a failure state because these world events, they can fail. These world bosses, they can fail. And this was what it looked like when you failed. Hence, lining up with the Gwen Pentakill. Now, this is something that almost nobody knows except Gwen Main's Discord. What I'm about to say. The Gwen Pentakill there, that was the very first game I played as Gwen in any game mode after joining the Discord. The Discord empowered me. I am not kidding. That actually happened. And it remains one of the funniest things that I put into these montages that nobody knows until I say something. But yeah, that Pentakill, first one after joining the Discord. So let's talk about the Leona one now. Now, Leona's montage. Oh, this is this came out around time of patch 7.2, which had a very highly anticipated fight because of who it was. Now, you'll see the robot, the giant robot. Well, that is Ionia, was based off of Beatrix from Final Fantasy IX. And you'll notice when she's giving her speech, we shift to at the Final Fantasy IX footage. That's because what I was trying to do with this was showing the 14th fight and the original fight. And this is something, well, we haven't, I was messing, I was thinking about it at the, back, after the next patch hit 7.3, a theoretical montage with Kindred in it will show Necron in 14 as well as Necron in 9. Theoretical. It will have Kindred in it, but I don't know if Kindred will be the main protagonist or a segment in it. I'm just saying it is related to a Kindred montage. So yeah, this does reappear in something we have not fully developed yet, because I don't know if I want to do it or if I just wanted to do a mock-up. At times I will do mock-ups to see, hey, what does this look decent? Should I pursue it? Most of the time it does. So yeah. Anyway, Roses of the Sun is meant to be a play on the theme Roses of May. And you'll see in the thumbnail, this uses the other half of the Rise of Me artwork, which just shows young Leona. Just like the Diana one showed her during this events of Rise of Me. So yeah, this is, and you'll see from the thumbnail, we see Beatrix as well, because again, the fight is a recreation of the boss fight from 9. Since don't trust the Final Fantasy IX expansion. There we go. Now let's talk about Thresh Goes to Eorzea. This was at this point one of our most ambitious montages because it's going to be our longest one again up to this point. And I wasn't sure which way to go. Like, if you see the track listings, all of them were good. One of the things I decided most on was Ancient Shackles. And then I decided, to develop it, and it's like Ancient Shackles, Hick Leons, Scream, Embers, all good. So we ended up making it just a journey through Pandemonium for Thresh. Hence, because he is the Chain Warden, and Pandemonium is the prison series. And I could have done the last sequence so much better. I didn't need to cut off the last segment as I did. I wanted it to be a little longer so you could clearly hear that it was the Thresh theme. I figured, hey, that's going to be a great way to finish it off. And you can see I started using voice clips way more for phase changes. This is about the earliest where we started thinking, where I started thinking, yes, I am going with this. Where we started using phase changes and segment changes to be marked by voice clips. This is something you prominently see in the Ionia Invasion, as well as the Dance Party series. And you can see in our timestamps here, yeah, we were kind of trying to keep the narrative there. This is something we kept going with for a much longer series until we hit the Kinkou Gaiden, where we started moving things around. We'll talk about that when we get to it as well. But if you look at the phases, yeah, some of these are kind of jokes about the lyrics or the titles. Like Hick Leons is, the main refrain is "Here be lions, follow me." Yeah, that's the joke. And honestly, I think if I could go back and do it again for that one, I think I would have incorporated one amongst the weary, the Pandemonium 9 and 10 music with, I'm not really sure. Hey, there was a song I wanted to use that I think I did use later in a different one, but I can't remember what it was. But I think Embers could have been used somewhere else. I'm not 100% sure on that one even now, but I think that could have been used somewhere else. It is what it is, however. Okay, so here we go. Morgana. Morgana's one of my oldest played champs. There were periods where I just straight up didn't play her, but back in season 1, 2, and 3, oh man, I loved playing her. And at the rework, she was, I don't know. I think it's, you know, some of the skins I liked and some I didn't like after the upgrades, but it's whatever, right? So here is an interesting thing. I was talking about wanting to do a Morgana montage because of the Shadowbringers theme. How if you look at the lyrics and parts of it, it talks, you know, it's something that fits very well to Kayle and Morgana. So I got into my head about, you know, during the development of doing it because, you know, I could get footage of them both pretty easily in Arena since, you know, nobody bans them. And at this point, yeah, we were mostly doing the montages based off of Arena footage only because Arena is easy content. It's easy because you can go in, even if you lose, you can still get some decent plays. It just takes a little longer. Now, here is an interesting thing. I had joined the Morgana mains Discord before this, and we were talking about how pretty the Spirit Blossom skin was, and most of us, well, I think everybody, all of us were pretty annoyed about it being locked behind gacha, rather than something that you could, you know, relatively easily get outside of it. And so I had leftover sparks from the Morty pass because Morty was before it, right? And you know where this is going. I shit you not. I got it. Give a free pass it, you know, with the free sparks. And this is after I complained about wanting to do the montage, but you know, wishing the skin wasn't there. And it was like, Riot was playing a joke on me. Like, damn. So yeah, there we go. The reason why you see me in this, I did not spend $200 to get it. I got it off freebie sparks. And honestly, it's a pretty skin, but I don't think they should have put it exalted. Or yeah, I'm agreeing. I think if they just priced it as an ultimate or a legendary plus, there would have been way less complaints about it. But that's just my take. Yeah, discussing the whole justification or, you know, defending or arguing against it, that's not really what we do here. Okay, this is not the video for that, and it's not something I really wish to weigh in on because why would you ever listen to me about it? That's just my own personal take. Is I think they could have lowered the price and people would have been less outraged. But yeah, so yeah, we got the skin, and that ended up being one of the more used ones. It's now. You think back to what I said back in the Diana retrospective. This was me better applying that knowledge, and we see this also in the Kayle video montage, to where we timed up footage with the lyrics. So when the lyrics go to one brings shadow, one brings light, it shows Morgana and Kayle respectively. The Kayle section of that I could have done better. If I had cropped the Kayle section better, it would have looked, you know, better in the sense of it was shown Kayle instead of the reveal from ground up. It would just shown her, I think I would say about half a second sooner, maybe 1 second sooner. But that is very much something I could have done better, and I am so sorry I didn't do that better. And trying to figure out a name for it. Well, I mean, yeah, we had to go Shadow Justice because it kind of works, right? So yeah, and in the phase change, I kind of liked the idea I was going with there with the Invincible music. Morgana ulting and now she's pissed off because she had to use her magic to put people under control. Hence, ulting and starting a phase change. And I think I could have done that better too. I think honestly I would have probably, well, I'm not really sure. Maybe incorporate, since the boss battle featured here is an Ascian, maybe somewhere around I could have incorporated Thunderer, which is a battle music associated with bosses in general, but it's also famously used in La Habrea's solo battle in the Realm Reborn, MSQ, as well as the Crystallis. It's the Crystallis trial, against Nabriales. So that's something I think I could have done better, is incorporate that somehow. Now I will note Thunderer, just on the name alone, has been, I've attached it to theoretical Volibear and Kennen montages. Those two have been, I have tagged those two with, getting that at some point or another. And there's, we'll get into that eventually, because there are a couple, montages later that I want to point out about that. So Garen, okay, Garen. Yeah, Garen is exclusively Summoner's Rift, because I was able to get some pretty decent amounts of footage just by playing him in there. And I want to talk about the intro. This is a heavily edited intro to remove my Warrior Light. So some of these, the 14 intros, they at varying points, they're showing the player's character. I wanted to talk about that early. The reason I edit mine out is not for privacy reasons. That's not it, because you can very easily see my character in my 14 vids. I just edited it out because I wanted to focus on the boss and showing the shots of the Warrior Light, the player's Warrior Light. It's not, we don't need that for that. So that's why it kind of looks strange or disjointed, is just because I removed it. And I moved shots of my character. Again, I'm not doing it for privacy, because that'd be weird, considering my 14 videos are up. It's just, to focus on the boss. And another funny thing is, since it had been literally years. Okay, so let me explain this one. When I went to record the intro, I did it in two steps. One was about music, background music, or sound effects. Well, it kept sound effects so I could hear the voices, right? But I removed the music, and then I decided I'm gonna have it be a 3-phase, thing. Heaven's Ward, then phase 1 music for Dordan, then phase 2 being the EX trial, the extreme trial. In the actual extreme trial, this is swapped, where the phase 2 music we see here is actually phase 1, and the phase 1 music here is actually phase 2 there. Why they did that, I don't know. This is a fight from 10 years ago. Okay, well, actually, no, it'd be 12, I think. No, it'd be 13, because I think it was late 2013, or it was either that or 2014, maybe 2015. Either way, it's a very old fight. And here is a little funny thing I did not realize. I wanted to have the Heaven's Ward music start, kick off when he starts, ready for combat. I did not know this was actually played in the actual intro. I went back to check something for some reason or another, and had the music on. I didn't remember at all that this actually was going on. So all we did pretty much was remove shots of our Warrior Light, and then had the music start later than it actually did in the actual unedited intro. So that's just a funny little thing that happened. Yes, the music did play. I did not remember it played. Okay, so Kayle. Ooh, this was a bit of a more complex one. In the sense of we tried some other new ideas, and that really I think we did end up kind of subconsciously reusing some of these for, you know, Dance Party and some others. So first off, you notice this is the Warrior Light, as in the boss, not our character. And you notice the thumbnail is the same as Morgana's in the sense of it is the boss and Spirit Blossom. So this was just a nice little callback to that. And I had a lot of fun with this one. I was really hyped to see it, and I was talking about it with Kayle Mains during development of it, and we ended up putting in going with this. Now there are two songs here, Fleeting Moment and To the Edge. To the Edge is actually the main music here. In the actual fight, Fleeting Moment is never heard, as that is actually raid music from a different expansion. However, the character here, the Warrior Light, aka Elidibus, yeah, sorry, look, I haven't had to say his name in a long time. Elidibus, he is the guy we see in Pandemonium 11, where his battle music there is Fleeting Moment. Together, they are meant to evoke the idea that Kayle is rampaging and Morgana has intervened. Hence the intermission, where Kayle takes the place of the Warrior Light and Morgana takes the place of Silk's Shade. Hence her interfering by stopping, Kayle's opponents from dying. Now, something to know about the phase change here. In the original fight, before the point where you need to use Limit Break 3, he says, he has the to me Warrior's Light speech. However, the animation is slightly different from the opening one, where you see the close-up of the warrior shades charging you, right? So the thing about that is, what we did there was just reuse the opening animation, as there was almost no difference, and the actual difference, what I should say, is when you get to the second phase, you see your character being charged at. And the animation, instead of being a cinematic camera, is an in-engine camera. So we just end up using the original because, again, for the most part, it's just the same thing, only not close up, if that makes any sense. So yeah, and honestly, I did had a lot of fun doing that one. I kind of liked how some of the music lined up as well. Like near the end, the piano refrain, and you get see Sion charging at me. Yeah, kind of felt like a delightful fray. So if that makes any sense. All right, so let's talk about Mordekaiser. This was definitely another one of those, but trying to figure out how to best do this. And this ended up being really fun. Starting off with the Shadow Lord intro, I could have done that one better. That's another one I could have done better by shortening the intro. I could have started at the coffin, had him popping up, and I could have done without the subtitles. Could have done that with just the audio. And I think I did this one pretty well. Like, I think it all came out very nicely. Like, yeah, the music combos and the thematic and the timestamps. And the funny thing about the Wrath of the Icons segment, well, so first off, all four of these are not related to each other. They're entirely different fights. Awakening is heard in the Juno raid. Wrath of the Icons is heard in some certain fights, like versus Xenos in the Stormblood MSQ, or Diabolos in the Dunscape raid, for example. Hunger is heard against the Cloud of Darkness and World of Darkness. Incaller is against Zodiark. Yeah, I could have done these. I don't think I could have done music better, but these all four are unrelated except for thematic. So yeah, and as I pointed out in the description, the Shadow Lord existed originally in Final Fantasy XI, as did his music. But I used the 14 one because I don't play 11, but I do play 14, and at the time, the Juno raid was still the newest Alliance raid. So we ended up using that instead. And I liked how I did the voice changes. And the Rapid Icon segment was actually pretty funny. Before I shifted it around a little bit because I kind of messed up certain clips and everything. What I did there was, originally I had the segment start a little later. It's, the music was started as Hecarim with the chauffeur argument with charging. So it was a funny little timing thing before I shifted it around. Originally it would have been just as Hecarim started charging at somebody with the chauffeur in effect. So yeah, and I think I could have done a better. I don't know. I think I could have done a better choice for the Morty skin on the thumbnail. I just felt like that was probably the most appropriate one. I think I could have done all. I could have went with one solid choice for skin, but I figured Mordekaiser, so it was kind of freeform on that one. And yeah, I think that most of that could have been done. I think there's some things I could have done better, but they're not coming to mind right away. And here we go, the dance party. So originally this was just going to be a Sona montage. And then while I was collecting all the footage, it randomly came to mind, what if we made it a dance party? And that is where the 4-part series came from. A random idea about expanding it from just Sona to Space Groove, and then deciding, hey, let's make this at least a 2-parter, right? So if you notice the comments there was a viewer there who pointed out that he was there for the gameplay, but stayed for the music. Came for the gameplay, stayed for the music. Again, as I said at the start, this is one of the biggest things I wanted people to take away from. Hearing music that they would not normally see or hear. And if I made even one person check out the 14 OST or any other songs used, I consider that a success. Because say what you will about JRPGs and MMOs, however you personally feel, some of those songs are absolutely amazing for League content. Look what we've done up to this point. We used raid music for Morty, raid music for Thresh, raid music for Kayle, Morgana, boss music in general for Garen, and boss music for Ashe, Gwen, Leona. Yeah, seriously, there are many choices here that I hope people see these and think, damn, that's awesome. If I achieved that, then hey, again, if I've achieved that, thank you. Seriously, if you have checked out the OST because of seeing songs in my montages or my VODs, thank you. I really appreciate when people do that, and yeah. So originally this was titled a Sona montage, and then when I decided to expand it to the other musical groups, I changed it to music skin. This is actually reflected in the description with a alternate title. That was the original title. It was originally just going to be a Sona montage. And yeah, it was like, I can't remember. I remember talking about it with a big Sona, main who also played 14 and is one of my biggest sounding board for ideas. Can't remember how we came across the idea that we should be ride the rhythm. I think it was the difficult part of this was finding the right track. So something they were experimenting with in 14 at this point was having the music shift based on what was going on. And they did do this actually. Like the one you hear in game is slightly different from the one you hear here, which is also on the orchestrion roll that you can get from as a buying on the market board or as a random drop in this raid. So yeah, the battle music is different from the orchestrion role. We used the orchestrion role music for this one because it's more consistent. And the music choices were actually kind of hard. In the sense of Oblivion. Now, I remember what I said about this being funny back in the Ashe one. There's multi-layered jokes here that I don't think anybody would get unless I tell them, or they are extremely well versed on 14 and League lore. So let's talk about why those are funny jokes. First off, I got to pull up the list. So yeah, actually, there's actually a lot of references in this in general. First off, Sona is a musical themed champion where this montage is set to the Dancing Green stage, which is the most musical one of all 12 Arcadian raids. Bass Groove is a musical themed set. Lissandra is the Lissandra segment coming after Nunu. That was an unintentional Song of Nunu reference. I had absolutely no intention of doing that. That's just how the footage played out. And we have DJ Sona inside the music, the theme, the thumbnail, right? Again, it's a dance party. And a big thing about the Dancing Green music is unintelligible. Except unless you listen to the Primals version. The default one has stuff that's hard to tell, just like the DJ Sona voiceover. And the short that I made to link to this has Michael Jackson references, and that itself is referenced in the raid. Not to, it's a Michael Jackson reference by proxy because it's actually referencing Jackson 5. And the Oblivion being used for Lissandra was major meta jokes that I accidentally did. Here is why. At that point, we did not have Lissandra VODs from Arena posted, but the footage used in it came from those VODs. And the VODs were the meme title of Diamond Dust. And Lissandra's ult works almost exactly like Diamond Dust. Yeah, I made a lot of jokes I didn't realize I made until I looked at the footage again. Not to mention Lissandra's passive summons frost zombies like the DPS check in the Shiva trial. Not the raid, the trial. There's multiple Shiva fights. But yeah, the arena meme ult build is called Diamond Dust because it's Lissandra, and that is a reference to Shiva. There's quite a few of those arena meme names that are actually references to Final Fantasy. I talked about this in the Tactics Let's Play, and in an unpublished VOD. Well, we are, along the way, I've recorded parts of the Final Fantasy Tactics Let's Learn as I was, getting ready to do, more of the tactician. There is a Sword Saint reference in there. Rather, the Sword Saint Arena VODs are a reference to Orlando. Orlando. Wait, I can't remember how to pronounce it. I think it's Orlando. Anyway, the Thunder God. So, that was, Sword Saint, and that was actually a reference to Final Fantasy. And there's some other, arena VODs that have references, in them. And I am sure I pointed this out in the, let's see, I pointed this out in Let's Learn for Persona 5 Strikers that Yoshitsune, the Hasatobi skip, I think that was a Persona reference that I don't think people got unless they actually played Persona. Of course, that one comes back later in, when we got to Yoshitsune's fights, in Neo. But yeah, the Lissandra segment had a lot of hidden references. And I liked how we continued the Sona footage after that. We at that point we still had a lot left over, so I thought, why not just use DJ Sona? And it also has a reference to the DJ Sona being on the party, on the thumbnail for the dance party. So yeah, at this point, it's honestly we've got our setup solidified for format: montage, audio, voiceover audio to herald change, segment changes and more. Okay, so let's talk about Yasuo and Yone. Oh my god. It's not a bad one. I think I had a good idea here, but first off, the Viego intro, this is horrible quality. I'm sorry, I know. I didn't understand why it was bad quality at the time because I had the bitrate too low. This is one I could have done much better by going back and getting better quality recording and knowing more about how to do editing and all that. So yeah, this is definitely one I could have done so much better. The other thing is, this is like twice as long as it should be. I could have cut out like 5 minutes of Yone and Yasuo both. It would have been so much better. This is a montage that just went on too long because of that. I did like the narrative I had here. This is, that is Yone setting out to find Yasuo, and that the phase change music of Todoroki is them fighting, with Amatsu Kaze being Yasuo walking away. Hence the specific usage of voice clips from Legends of Runeterra and Yasuo's updated League VO. So yeah, this is one I absolutely recognize could have been done so much better. It went on too long, but I think I had good ideas here by using, I could have done these themes around Spirit Blossom as well because Viego. So yeah, Yasuo Yone fans, I'm sorry. I know it could have been better. It could have been so much better. If I knew then what I know now, I would have done this much better. It's just too bloated. I think this is my worst montage in the sense of you could cut it by half. It would have been better. It went on too long. So, the second dance party. Now, this one's got some very interesting history behind it. So, what I intended to do here was, this was actually going to be the finale, because at the time I didn't know if I wanted to continue on. But so, I was designing it around the idea that we'd be finishing up here. Obviously, we didn't do that because there were more tracks to use from Arcadian along the way. So, let's talk about why this one was particularly interesting. So, this was, let's see, hold up, pull it up. This was KDA versus Pentakill. This pairing was based on music skin lore, as well as fan memes of stuff like KDA meeting Pentakill, as well as references like, in the skin lore, Evelyn is supposed to have a relationship with Karthus. And this is something that's later touched on, the other bands interacting with each other is later touched on by True Damage and Heartsteel. Because Echo and Kane's Legendaries both have lines for these other bands. And it's called Riot Records, and they all exist, including DJ Sona. So yeah. Now, the music choices, the first music choice was, I felt like it was going to be controversial. Because if you look at it versus what I used for the first one, which is Popstar Ari, you would think something was, you would think maybe this doesn't fit, but it does, because K-pop is more than just bubblegum pop or something like that. Like, there are, ones that veer towards rock, there's ones that veer towards hip-hop and more. It is a broad term, broad umbrella, if you ask me. encompasses more than just bubblegum pop like a Girls' Generation or something. And I think this honestly did work out very well. And then we have, KDA actual song coming up right after. And one of my viewers said that was like their favorite segment was the KDA segment. And then we have the Be My Honey segment. This one is actually a very... Okay, there's actually an incredible in-joke here. I don't think anybody would have got this unless they were a Savage Raider in 14. So, the footage here was used from the Alarm Pheromone Ari and Evelyn videos, which was a joke. When it's an Alarm Pheromone build, is building around Jeweled Gauntlet and Charm memes. Now, do you know why this is a 14 joke? Because Alarm Pheromone is a Savage-only mechanic for Honeybee Lovely, who has the theme music of Be My Honey, and is a mechanic that was known to wreck raiders. Hence, the massive in-joke here. And I am so glad I finally get to talk about that. That is like one of the biggest jokes I've been sitting on, because I don't think anybody would have gotten that unless they were a Savage Raider. That was the entire joke. It was a honeybee joke the entire time. And Pentakill's section here was tough to place because looking at the Arcadian music, it was hard to choose which one. At that point, there was only 8 tracks. Well, 10 if you count the Savage version of the Savage music for 4 and 8. So there are 10 tracks, 8 normally. And then I think either I came up with the idea or one of my viewers did, suggested Burning Souls. And that came out, that worked. It worked. It was perfect once I put it to the music. Like, I actually wish I'd thought of it sooner. So to my viewer, thank you. And it all just worked together to be a KDA versus Pentakill, dance off. Now, in Dance Party 4, you see Viego crashing a party as well as the bands uniting. This was actually planned for this one. It was planned to be, it was going to be Space Groove, KDA, and Pentakill uniting to repel Viego. And that is why you may be wondering, why is it arena footage and not arena and ARAM, Mayhem? That's why. A lot of these are actually arena footage because they did so many of these before ARAM came out. That it was like, I think it was Dance Party 4 where we started using ARAM footage. Otherwise, it was mostly arena. So yeah, that is the story of Dance Party 2. Viego was intended to be here, and then I moved it to Dance Party 3. So yeah, we'll get to his role more there soon enough. Alright, so here we go. The Invasion of Ionia. Oh, this is a fun one to do. And until, let's see. Yeah, actually, until the finale of the Dance Party, it actually became our longest one. Mostly because we had a lot of stuff to work with here. So we went for some key things here. This was actually born out of a theoretical Akali montage, which would have used mostly just Liberty or Death. So I decided to just swing it around to, the Invasion of Ionia in general. So we ended up using the Gimlet Dark, dungeon music, as well as various Guardian Empire themes and related, on top of the Doma Castle music, which was the Liberation Gates of the Moon, as played during the Kennen segment. So then we had Aurelia. I did try to find a list of who mechanically showed up in the invasion, so I decided, screw it. What is use some extras because it was really easy to get Talon and Rel and Cassio in the arena. On top of a Scion, because people don't ban Scion as much as they used to, or at least during then. I don't know how it is nowadays, because I haven't played arena in months as of this. But this was actually a fun one to explore. The idea of Swain invading. I believe I was going for it was a combination of the first one as well as the theoretical second one. The Swain. Let's see, I'm thinking. Okay, so based on current lore, this would have been the first invasion. Because Swain and Aurelia did fight in the first one. Hence why he lost his arm. And as I noted in the description, yeah, not all of these guys showed up there normally. They were there just there for entertainment purposes. This is something I will later use in the latest dance party, so we'll talk about that when we get to it. But this is kind of where I got the idea that we can use some if it makes sense. But other than that, there wasn't really much to talk about with this one because I felt like, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Remember back in the Darius one? Yeah, that's where that extra footage, when I was doing all that, that's where all that extra footage went. For Darius, it went into here. I ended up reusing that footage here. So that was, again, like I said back then, this was where we got the idea to start, that first one, start using these footage later on. So the Zombie Slayers go to Transylvania. This was a very fun one to do. This is where I started to really get the ideas of how I was going to do game montages. Because you can see some ideas here that I later incorporated into Kinkou Gaiden and the Christmas montage. And we'll talk about those when we get to it. So, this was just a fun one to do because first time doing a holiday montage. Not to mention, we had a perfect selection of, number 4, Thresh. That could have been done a little bit better by using Mundo instead of Thresh. But I thought Thresh, I thought people enjoyed Thresh more. I could have done, in retrospect, I could have done Mundo because he has a Mundo skin for Halloween. Or I could have went with, I could have actually gone with Annie for Frankentibbers. But yeah, I think it honestly worked out the best with Thresh. Because Thresh just shits out plays. Like, we saw it in the Kinkou Gaiden, we saw it in his own montage, we saw it here. He's a playmaker. That's all it is. He's very easy to make plays with, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. So I wanted to point out some things here. There's actually a lot of development in this one that, if you do not know the context of, will make certain other things look strange. So this is a very deep Forte lore here. We'll get to stage 3 is a deep one, but I'll get to that in a moment. The first stage, there was something I could have done so much better if I had thought about it at the time. The boss section should have been Bat Nivea. She would have been perfect, but I didn't realize I had the skin. I didn't realize I had it until after we were done. Because I get so many skins from rerolls, I just forget some exist. I forgot I had it. So, if I could do the skin, there would have been a Bat Nivea section. And Nivea's Halloween skin would have been there. Bewitching Bat Nivea. That would have been there. Absolutely would have been there. That is one of the biggest missteps I made in this one. It was not seeing if I had that skin. I think I knew I had it, but I forgot I had it. So yeah, that could have been better. Now, the thing about the second part of this, Cassiopeia, I could have used any of her skins for this because she fit the mold of being Medusa for this. I could have actually went for Ultra Meme and used Mystic Cassiopeia. could have done that. That is something I could have done. However, I chose Bewitching for two reasons. One, it fit the theme of Halloween, and it kept true to the spirit. Two, she looks like Alcina Dimitrescu. Big vampire mama. That was the reason I chose that skin, ultimately, on top of it being Halloween. She looked like Big Mama. And that was an in joke that I don't think anybody could have noticed unless I told them. Because the splash art makes her, when she's doing that smile, she looks like she's doing the Alcina smile from the Resident Evil 8 trailer. So stage 3. Ooh, here's the deep lore. Here is the deep lore that almost nobody's going to know. So, this was originally going to be Zombie Brand and Amumu. The reason for this is, when I was a dungeon master in a D&D community, I ran a plot finale that was based around Castlevania 1, where it was a gauntlet series of bosses. We had a bat plus an undead form. Then we had a Gorgon in an undead form. And then we had two mummies. One was a warrior mummy and the other was a mage mummy. Brand and Amumu would have represented these two mummies. And it would have been a huge subtle reference to that D&D session. Again, this is some deep lore. And see, remember correctly, we didn't have a boss. Let's see. Yeah, we had a boss for the fourth one, which was just a flesh golem to represent Frankenstein. And again, in this one, this was Thresh. Again, it could have been Mundo, could also have been Annie with Frankenterrors, but I chose Thresh. Again, I think people enjoyed Thresh more than the others. And the fifth boss was Karthus using the Reaper skin, the Grim Reaper skin. That was intentional. I don't know if anybody actually actually noticed the skins being used past Halloween. It was intentional because the Grim Reaper Karthus skin looks closest to Death in Castlevania 1. And then we have the Out of Time, the Out of Time level, which was the Clock Tower in MF. So here is why MF was here. Originally, this was going to be the Lady Bewitching skin, so it's going to be Senna, Misfortune. I forgot who else. Oh, I think it was Nico. I think I was playing on Nico. The idea was the Brides of Dracula. This was early into the development when I was trying to figure out who goes on which level. I ended up using MF. Now, there is no boss normally in the Clock Tower, so this is one custom for it. And I just didn't want to give up that footage of MF because we got some pretty funny games during that. And if you look at the Brawl videos around that time, this is why you see so many of these Halloween skins. They were being recorded for the footage. And the Bloodlord, well, as it pointed out in the description, this is actually a big joke. It uses Dracula from Symphony of the Night as well as battle music because his name is Vladimir Tepes. Hence the joke of using, Vlad, Dracula voice lines for Vlad, as well as the whole Bloodlord thematic. And I thought instead of just using Nothing to Lose over and over for that section, there's something I ended up later doing for Christmas montage, but at the time I decided instead of doing that, let's just change it up a little before doing that. We end up going Dance of Illusions for the Dracula battle as a nod to Castlevania, or Symphony of the Night's usage of it, as well as Rondo of Blood, which is where those are the first two games where that soundtrack was used. And then I decided bonus boss of Fright Night Vagar because at the time Doombots was still active. And I thought putting in Final Confrontation, aka the Satan music from Lords of Shadow, was the best call. And I honestly think that's one of my better ones. And I really do think it was one of my best ones. just because I think everything came together so nicely. Plus, there were deep lore cuts that almost nobody would have known until now. And let's see. So the next one is the third dance party. Now, this is the shortest of the dance parties, not intentionally. And, you know, this is actually something I didn't realize until after I did it, but this is actually a lore-based one because Heartsteel Kayn, the idea behind Heartsteel is Kayn formed it after being rejected from True Damage. So making it True Damage versus Heartsteel instead of just being the only two I hadn't done at that point, it actually has lore basis. That is something that is just worked out very neatly. And this was another one that was tough to do because we didn't, you know, my viewers and we didn't quite figure out where we wanted to go with the music on this one. But back to the drawing board, the music for Sugar Riot, it worked out. It worked out because, one, Sugar Riot is like a mini-me of KDA Akali with the graffiti and the rapping. And it worked out for True Damage. It absolutely worked out. Then we have Not Afraid, which is the M7 music, and that it worked out for Darksteel. The overall theme, the overall melody and such worked out. Unfortunate that it wasn't 100% on lyrics because, you know, it talks about lyrics of pro wrestling references and losing identity and more. And then we have the post montage little speech from me. And I'll say it again, thank you all so much for watching these. Like, they keep me going, knowing people are actually watching and enjoying. And at the time, we didn't know what the musical track for the Green Room music was. So at the time, it was just listed as Green Room, and that was a remix of Showtime. Now we know it is called The Rings Reprieve, so I did end up going back and updating the description. However, the special message was in fact advising, yes, we were going to have a finale. But did you watch the entire thing through? Because in the last 5 seconds, that was Viego's laugh, indicating that he was coming. Now, if I had not, by the time this came out, they announced patch 7.4 and the finale of the Arcadia raids, and I thought, instead of making this the finale with Viego and the bands united, we'll move that to Dance Party 4. We'll move that there, and then bam, that's all done. We just moved the Viego battle there, as well as the bands teaming up, and that's also around the time I started thinking, the dance off. But we'll go into that when we get to part 4. So here we go, the Kinkou Gaiden series. Ooh, this one's got some deep history in it. So while I was developing the Halloween series, I randomly had the idea come to mind of a Shin montage themed around Ninja Gaiden. This is because I had so much fun doing the Halloween one something I forgot to talk about in the Halloween one is, if I could do it again after doing Kinkou Gaiden, I would have gone back and did it with the stage and all that. I would have loved to do that with the stage and the weapon more than just in each of the transition. Yeah, I would have done that. I definitely would have done the stage overlay, the score bar at the top, and all that. So Kinkou Gaiden, this is where we started really understand what we're going to be doing with future montages. So this is where we establish our standard of having a black box at the top of the screen and started to do a little bit more with information there. Like this is more pronounced in the dance party finale, and we'll get into that when we get to it. And it's a little bit more pronounced here. Well, it's rather not here, but it's also in the Christmas montage. But again, we'll get to those in time. So here, now this was experimenting with what we were doing. You'll see we improved in the next one, Kinkou Part 2 with the score bar and the information and the overlays and all that. It gets better there. It's definitely better there. But the game select screen, oh my god. What I hated here was constantly getting the emblems wrong. And it's like really hard to tell on some of them, but just like a split second, you can see there's still errors there, and I've been trying to catch them, and I keep forgetting to get them because I think I get them, then bam, nope. Turns out I don't have them. I don't have it fixed. Now, most people think it's probably not a big deal, but it just feels bad, It feels bad and thinking, oh, I fixed it. Nope. Like saying, screw you, man. I'm still here. Alright, but now an interesting thing about this one, during the final stages when we were getting ready to merge it, I accidentally deleted most of the footage. Yeah. Or rather, I deleted the merged one that was ready to be had the finishing touches, so I lost it, and I had lost the Shin footage here, and it was demoralizing, to say the least. However, because I already knew what I wanted to do, how to do it, I was able to recreate about 2 weeks of work within 3 hours. By simply going back into Arena and playing Shin, and I think it was Mundo and somebody else to get the missing footage. It may have been Malzahar, but I think we had to do that for Kinkou 2. Yeah, I think we had to do that for Kinkou, 2. But yeah, Arena footage in this one for Shin, it replaces the ARAM footage that we originally had. And the original ARAM footage was actually Psyops Shin. And then it's like, somebody I was shown the idea to told me, why Psyops Shin? You should use Shockblade. And the original reason for Psyops Shin was because the upper body, as well his upper body looked closest to Ninja Gaiden 3D Ryu Hayabusa. His helmet looked the closest, as did the fact that his upper arms were exposed on there. Hence, that was the original idea. But I decided to switch it to Shockblade because it shared a skin with Kassadin and Zed, and it made more uniform. If Kennen had Shockblade, you would have seen this too in Kinkou Gaiden Part 2. If he had Shockblade. We talk about Part 2 soon enough. So I tried to avoid reusing reusing music here. Hence why in Stage 6, Act 6, that music is not there normally. That is actually cutscene music. But I used it because, Ninja Gaiden games were very big on reusing music, even if it was already in the previous stage. And this is something I noted in, I noted this in the description. This is something that happens in Kinkou Gaiden 2, and it will happen in Part 3 as well. And this is actually where the last time we did the narrative in timestamps. During the development of Part 2, we decided to just shift it there. And this was actually an interesting one to figure out for which bosses should have which champions. So, the first one is Mundo, because he has an actual executioner skin. And then we had Thresh, who stands in for the bomber, who has a Kusari Gamma, aka a chain sickle. And then we had Katarina, who took the place of the third boss, who is a guy who jumps around and uses dual daggers as a weapon. And So the CIA had the Black Rose stand in for them. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, then we had Warwick taking the place of the guard dog of Hades, which was what the original name of the Kerberos was in Ninja Gaiden. Here is the guard dog of the Temple of Atacon. The Guardia. This is something I should have fixed. Actually, as of this recording, it still says Guardia de Mu, but I am changing it as we speak to Guardia de Icatia, because that would have made more sense, and we did, in fact, adopt this in during the development of Part 2. So this is something I did not catch until just now. So yeah, it'll show up properly on the timestamp after this recording. And then we have Zed taking the place of Bloody Mouth. And apparently this is a translation error. He was intended to be called Bloody Mars. Hence the design, the suit design and all that, looking like what you expect of a classical god of war, or at least a Greek god. And then at the final boss 6, final section, we have Shen taking on Kassadin, and then Malzahar, and then finally Cho'Gath. Now, at the time, I only had the one Battlecast Prime Cho'Gath game. If I had thought about it, it would have been Shanghai Scroll or Broken Covenant. So I think those were the most appropriate for this idea. However, we did use Shanghai in Part 2. And you could also look at this as a meta thing, because in the original, that wasn't the true demon. However, in Part 2, that you do see the true demon. But yeah, there was a lot of interesting ideas here. Oh, before I forget, the opening fights cutscene. Did anybody catch what the sound effects were? It was the ult noises for Zed and Kassadin. It was kind of the earliest hint that that those two would be Kassadin and Zed much later on. But yeah, that's it for Part 1. Now let's talk about Part 2. Part 2, now this was honestly a fun one. Some of Kennen's footage near the end was actually arena. Well, actually, it may have been. Oh, wait, yeah, Kennen. I went into arena with Kennen to pad out footage because I didn't have enough. So after the first stage, it ends up becoming alternate between Yunara and Kennen, both to spread out the footage and both to give them more as equal time as possible. Because they were cropped to around 1 minute to 1.5. Based on trying to be equal airtime as well as not messing up any clips. And this is another one that we had to deal with, the problem of reused music. So again, some music was excised, some was just used again, unfortunately. So this is actually a very interesting one to do, because in the intro there's actually 3 people shown. You get Ryu, Irene, and then you have Robert T.S. Army. And at one point, it would have been Kennen taking the place of Ryu, Yunara taking the place of Irene, and Xin Zhao taking the place of Robert T.S. I decided not to include him and just adapted him out so we could focus on being Yunara and Kennen versus Morty and Atacon. Now, here are some interesting ones. So, Act 2, in the OSC listings, the music is actually switched on the names to where the train segment is called Thunderstorm, but the mountain segment is called Overdrive, when it's actually the other way around. It's supposed to be the other way around. The mountain segment is Thunderstorm, with the train segment being Overdrive. So we list it here as it was supposed to be, rather than it actually is. There's an error in the OST, the sound test. And this is where we started shifting the montage narratives to act cards rather than You know, having it in the timestamps. I feel like the timestamps would have made it too wordy. So that is why you see the act things. I think it works out better this way. I think it's much better this way. You get hook a timestamp, because I put the timestamps at the start of each act so you can see it, and yeah. And I do think this was just ultimately really good. I like how it came out. I learned a lot during this, and it felt like it took way less time than the previous one because I knew what I wanted to do. And I think because this was made during the biggest, you know, during Yonara release, so there was a lot of hype, and it was before I remember correctly, we put this up before. Wait, no, I think it came after Zahin. Yeah, I remember thinking maybe we should have Zahin stand in for the demon, but I didn't think it would have worked for either narrative or gameplay purposes. Because we could use Zahin and other stuff like, you know, Dark and Montage or something. But either way, this was around time of trial Twilight, so yeah. And then we have Christmas. This was a time rushed one, mostly because, you know, first off, we had to figure out what we were going to do. Well, you know, honestly, I think it came out very well. I had to figure out the theme I was going with, and I decided we're going to take a lot of winter music. We're going to take some boss music and just have a silly montage. But I ended up figuring out what to do. I used 2 games, as noted in the description, Streets of Rage 3 and Gunstar Heroes. I wanted to use the entire Gunstar Heroes opening, rather the title screen, and then you know, stage select, well, not stage select, but the character select, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get what I needed, which was something that was easy to work with, or in terms of editing and all that, where I could disable layers and all that. And since, you know, yeah, I just couldn't get what I needed, and I don't think I could have was some very creative editing. You know, I think say creative editing would have gone bad. I think it would have looked worse. But either way, so sorry. Now, there was a little bit of a joke I was playing here. I was making people. The idea here was I wanted people to think it was going to be a Streets of Rage montage. You know, Jinx and the MF shooting her way through the Vhagar's goons. But the joke, the real is a bait switch into it's, you know, you think it's Streets of Rage? Nope, it's Gunstar. So yeah, I thought the Gunstar select was I couldn't do it. There was no better choice. Like it was absolute perfect. And the reason why is because you got the free shot and the fixed shot. And you putting MF in over the fixed shot was meant to reference her being more of a stationary ADC, and her ultimate being a, you know, fixed location, versus Jinx being thematically someone who just fires all over the place, and her being more mobile, so to speak. Because if she gets going in a team fight, yeah. Hence why she was on free shot and MF was on fixed. And I really like the music choices for this. There were some others I didn't get to use. Unfortunately, I don't have the list anymore. But you know, this was the final list. An interesting thing was Tundra Man's music ended up being used for Teemo and Tristana. If I had the Winter Wonder Zeri skin, it would have been used for her, because Tundra Man has ice skating as a theme, and Zeri has ice skates. Hence, I would have easily used it for that. And for the Santa segment, it was originally going to be Santas in general. I had footage for Gragas. I think I had footage for Draven. but obviously we just went with Braum. And I liked the final segment with Jinx versus Veigar and LeBlanc, because you get the piano, the quiet piano, the peace music into MF going down, suggesting it's like the Halloween montage is Jinx taking on the forces of the bad guys. And this is something we end up. I remember we were talking about how we reused this concept for in a previous retrospective. Yeah, this is what we're going with here. We're just end up using an extended version of Jingle Bells. And honestly, if you listen to that, it's like, that is Xmas Jinx music, man. It's good stuff. So yeah, we end up using parts of, we using parts of Streets of Rage 3 and Gunstar Heroes. And since we didn't use act cards like we did with Kinkou Gaiden, we end up putting them out in the the timestamps. I will say this: if I had thought about it at the time, instead of doing it with Dance Party Part 4, I would have put the song titles in there, and maybe, I don't know, put a little narrative in. Otherwise, it was just a generic Happy Holidays. So yeah. Oh, and the Mad Snowman Gang, that is a Mad Gear reference, aka the main antagonist of Final Fight. Final Fight actually was a candidate for a start screen before I settled on Streets of Rage. So yeah, there was a point where we could have had Final Fight as the theme. And now we're going to get to the final one of the Dance Party Volume 4. The big finale. So, this was a long one in the making, so to speak. We had so many ideas. I couldn't figure out if I wanted to do a boss intro again. And then I had this idea of, what if we showed Sona in the ready room watching the previous montages? So we end up using 10 seconds of each montage going into the Arcadian, the intro from the RGM VODs into the actual Sona footage. Now, here's something that interesting. The Monster Rancher 2 arena entrance segment, that was not originally planned. I thought it could be a good idea to further show that Sona entering the arena. So I ended up recording that, adding it to it, and that's why we had the intro as her in the ready room, and then her getting ready, and the voice clips were meant to illustrate this. So I did want to have each segment be in, the band plus the song title in the upper right, in order to better make the timestamps look cleaner and make it easier for someone to see what it is without having to look at the timestamps. So they get a quick timestamp and see in the upper right what the song is. And that's how we did that, end up doing that. And that is honestly probably what we're going to be doing from now on, after Kinkou Gaiden 3, whatever montage we do next. It's going to have the black bar, it's got the song in the upper right, and in the center it's going to have whatever else. And something else I wanted to do for this was actually put up a light bulb marquee around the bar to make it look like the outside of a concert hall with the marquee showing the bands playing. Anything I used looked like crap. I wanted to do that, but I thought it's better to just go simple. But yeah, most of them look like awful when applied. It is what it is. I mean, I think this minimalist thing is better ultimately. There's less eye noise, so to speak. So, if you look at the set order, do you notice anything unusual? It is unusual because these are except for Heartsteel and True Damage, it's actually the banned progression order from the montages prior. So yeah, DJ Sona was Space Groove for the first one, as in the first montage. Then you had KDA, the Evelynn and Ahri duel. Then you had Pentakill with Heartsteel, True Damage. And then you had the Superfans and Ionic Spark. But we're going to get to them in a moment. So let's talk about the KDA and Ahri section. Well, Evelynn and Ahri section. This had different choices originally. So something I've been doing for months now was hitting the Mythic shop every time a new chroma came out. I've been trying to get the baddest chroma for Akali. If we had managed to get the chroma before we locked in the segments, KDA would have been replaced. KDA's more segment would have been replaced by baddest, and it would have been only the baddest chromas. I will tell you this: if the chroma ever comes out for sale in the Mythic shop, we will definitely do a bonus montage of the baddest set to the song. That was the only reason why we did not have it here, is because this damn chroma has not come out. So yeah, unfortunate. Otherwise, Evelynn and Ahri was. I screwed this up a little bit. I should have done more Evelynn than Ahri, because the theme we used for it, Sinister, is basically Soul Fighter Evelynn as a raid boss. And there is I can't remember the channel's name, but there was a meme video put up at the end of last year or earlier this year, back in early January, called the Dawn Trail Meme Rewind. And in it, the uploader made a joke about, Vamp Fatale being Soul Fighter Evelynn, and I'm like, I am so happy people were going with that joke. I felt like I was alone, because, if you look at people making League references outside of League, it's like they kind of get side-eyed or, treated like a dumbass. I'm just so happy that others are making that joke too, that I was not alone in thinking that looked like Soul Fighter Evelynn. Because if you look at Vamp Fatale and you look at Soul Fighter Evelynn, it's like, holy shit. I am so happy people are rolling with that joke. I don't claim to be the first one to do it. I just know I was one of the first to do it. So the music here. Now we got a little bit of a in-lore reference to my channel here. So when the raids came out, actually before the raids came out, there was a preview during the 7.4 live letter. There was an announcement that Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine did a guest track that'd be played in the Arcadian raids, and it was given a preview, and I was like, oh shit, that's Pentakill. And then when we got to the raids, when they came out in December, I straight up said at the start that I was evaluating things for, Dance Party 4, and I straight up said Pentakill. But after listening to it, I was like, oh, this is Pentakill and Heartsteel. Good, because if you look at the lyrics, they're pretty close in theme, not lyrical content, but the overall theme. They're close to Heartsteel's Paranoia. Hence, I ended up making this a Pentakill and Heartsteel collab. And the voice line used for Morty is actually from the original voiceover, not the post-rework one, where he references time to shred, aka time to play guitar. So yeah, and True Damage was a very hard one to place here until I got the idea to use Rise. Because 1 is a rapid thing, and 2 is time travel themed. And, Echo. So that is why True Damage has Rise. And honestly, it worked out because at some points you get the Rise crescendo with Yasuo. It's kind of cool. Now here is something I messed up with. I should have done Ionic Spark then Superfans. Now you're going to be wondering about this one. So I pointed this out in the the video description, but the Ionic Spark skins and the Superfan skins do not exist on League proper. They exist only in TFT, and in Ionic Spark's case, they only exist in Golden Spatula, which is the mobile only, and I believe is China only version of TFT. Which is a true shame because that is a very pretty Gwen skin. And the band is Gwen, Aurora, Briar, and Elise. We did get Elise footage during this, but however, it was, we do have it for a spoiler alert. We actually got an Elise game to post up. We have one Elise VOD, and yeah. The thing about it is, it was Blood Moon, and Blood Moon is one. Well, we're going to go into this at the end, but Blood Moon is a potential future montage. So, unfortunately, our release game was, we didn't have any leftover footage from Kinkou Gaiden 2. So, our release game was Blood Moon, and we already earmarked that for a potential Blood Moon montage. So, yeah. I'm just saying, yeah, I could not get any other release footage to go with that. Otherwise, we probably would have all four in there. And then we had the super fans. So if I had thought about it better, Ionic Spark would have gone before super fans because it would have looked better, I think. Super fans, so you got Lilia and Nico for KDA, Kennen for true damage, Gnar for Pentakill. And you'll maybe wonder, why is Annie here? Annie is seen in the Ionic Spark video, and she is dressed up like Ionic Spark. So we are going off the idea that she is a super fan, but for Ionic Spark. Because if you look at Kennen's super fan, he's dressed up like true damage, and it's implied he's only there for Akali. And Gnar is like the Pentakill mascot. He's dressed up again like Pentakill. And then you have Lilia and Nico dressing up like KDA. That is why Annie is there. If you're wondering why she's there, that is why. She's Ionic Spark's representative. And then here we have the Viego crashing a party, which is, again, yeah. Now, here is one of my favorite parts of this, the bands uniting. So the idea here was actually taken all the way back from part 2, where I thought I might be ending the series before I decided to go to part 3 with the others, and then eventually 4. So the reason why this is so Seraphine heavy is because this is actually leftover footage from KDA in part 2. So the KDA section, the Mora section, is actually part of the leftover footage from KDA. So both KDA and Seraphine section inside the United section is all that footage that was left over. I had thought about, making it Seraphine plus Ari, but I decided to just go with that because I was cutting it down to where it's around 8 minutes a song, right? And well, actually seven and just over 7.5 because I had to cut out some footage. But it ended up being around 91 minute to 96 a piece for each band because, again, I wanted to be fair, like with Kinkou Gaiden Part 2. And the musical track here was originally going to be Wrath of the Harrier, which was used for the Diablo ornament fight in Zadnor. And at the time, it sounded like a good idea because we didn't have any better ones. However, during the process of developing this, the Savage music was revealed because by the time we finished this, right by the time we finished up all the montage editing and all that, and selecting music tracks, Savage came out for the Arcadian Heavyweight, and it was revealed what the song was for phase 2 of match 12. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my god, this is it. This is it. This was exactly what I needed because it is a combined lead motif of every single track in the Arcadian. So we had match 1, 2, 3, and so on. And it was exactly what we needed because, again, it was a combination of all the tracks, and it really sold the idea of Viego being teamed up against by the surviving band members. And I was just so happy, and I still like listening to it on repeat at times. Because it is honestly a great song. I think it's a great song. And then we have the final segment of the dance-off. Alright, so here are some interesting things about it. One, well, not every single skin used here was represented. And I did make a little bit of goofing. I forgot to put in KDA Akali, and there's a blink and you'll miss it shot of All Out Kaiser. I tried to limit it to ones I did. And another thing was some skins did not get included because of the way the model and the recall or the dance interacted with the health bar. I wanted to, as you can see, I zoomed in. I was trying to focus on just the model. Not every single one of them could be focused in like that, unfortunately, because the way the models are in the hitboxes are, for terms of the the health bar and all that, it's weird. Like for example, DJ Sona has a huge one. I think hers is as big as Mordekaiser's for purposes of this. I thought it was so strange how some of these are so inconsistent. But yeah, and you can see where I was using recall. And if you look very closely, we see the yellow lightning sparks or something at the feet. Some of these were recorded on the current patch of 16.2. Because most of these were actually recorded months ago when I had the idea of doing the dance-off in part 3. Before moving to Viego battle and Viego segment and dance-off to part 4. But these are actually back from around time of Dance Party 3. Another thing is, you maybe wonder, why is All Out Superstar Seraphine here instead of Indy? Because I didn't use, Superstar in any of the footage. Well, it's because the Indy Seraphine dance is completely different from the Superstar one. And I put Superstar Seraphine there because I wanted the More dance. The dance she does in the More video. So I wanted that there, but if it was on the indie one, we would have seen the indie one there instead. It is a very strange thing. Well, a strange choice, but I think it was meant to go with the Seraphine narrative. But yeah, that is why Superstar is there instead of Indie, because she only does the More dance there. As far as I know, I did not think to check the Rising Star Seraphine. And let's see, yeah, and Sona did not get included because, yeah, same thing I was saying before. There's issues with the models. Some of them don't have the bar pushed up enough where I can zoom in easily. Oh, and I almost forgot. The reason why you didn't see Set or Kane or Heartsteel, I don't have their skins. And same with Yone, both of his. I can only use the skins I have. I'm sorry, but I thought about using any of Set's skins as a stand-in, but I didn't think it was right because, again, I was trying to stay true to the spirit of it. But that's why you see so much Cassante, Israel, and Aphelios. I have only their skins. For terms of Heartsteel. But yeah, that is what the plan was for part 4. And if we ever get the damn Akali Chroma, I may do like a brief, small montage of baddest to the baddest Chromos to the actual name. And since the music skin was, so much fun, I kind of wish it. If we ever have a new, musical set, I may do a reprise of this. I don't know. I do have an idea of a remix Rumble themed one. If you're familiar with Ultimates in 14, you might know where I'm going with this. But that's just a vague idea. And, we also got to talk about our potential future montages. So let me just pull up that list. So we're not going to be we're not going to put it in there because I don't have it written down or anything as a note, as a image or anything. I'll tell you what I have in mind. Now, I wanted to preface this. I want to put a disclaimer. None of these are guaranteed. These are only theoretical ideas. Now, you're more than welcome to say, "Hey, I want to see this. This might be cool." I will take interest into account, but I cannot guarantee anything because I may not be able to fully execute an idea. Again, like I said back at the start with the Diana, I may not be able to fully execute an idea. But I will tell you the ones I have in mind. So, first off, we have Anima Squad. Heavy focus on Jinx and Misfortune. The working, theme would be XCOM. More specifically, XCOM 2. Our next one, Arcade versus Battle Boss. It would be an assortment of 8 and 16-bit games. Our third one, Blood Moon versus Snow Moon, themed around Neo. Our next one, Burning Tides, Bilgewater Champions. Most likely, the battle for Bilgewater with Gangplank and Misfortune. And I do not have a theme in mind for this. Next one, Eclipse Leona versus the Coven and Old Gods. Themed around Dark Souls. This, however, I will preface this one. Well, I will make a note. This one might actually be combined with Blood Moon for a general, Leona and the Eclipse Knights versus Coven and Blood Moon. Next one, Heartseekers and Valentine's Day. I do not have a theme for this, but there's a lot of champions that can go in there. And the next one, Lunar Revel. Possibly Neo themed, but unlikely because I am not really sure which way I would want to go with this. Next one, and this is one I think some people might want to see, even though I'm terrible at these two champs. Pulsefire Ezreal or Project Yasuo, themed around Mega Man X or Mega Man Zero, depending on which one to go with. Again, I'm terrible at those two, but I feel like people might actually want to see this one. And this would actually be a huge tribute reference to the Pulsefire Man X meme from back in, I think, 2013? Let me look it up. There was a meme video posted many years ago, early in the League's lifespan. Let's see, it says that it was 10 years ago. So it would have been 2016. And it was a very funny shitpost. And it was, it was Mega Man, it was the first level of Mega Man X with Pulsefire Ezreal, the old one. And it's actually the origin of the joke for Mega Man X and Zero Let's Play titles. Yes, you're getting more deep lore here. those were always references to this original shitpost. It was a good idea back then. Hence why this will be the theme here. It will be giving that one some more acknowledgement. And then our next one, Postfire in general, it will be themed around the Alexander raids. So a lot of time travel and more. Next one, Runeterran Iron Chef, cooking skins. So Sashimi Akali, Butcher Olaf, Master Chef Tom Kinch, all those related ones. Themed around cooking minigames. Look, I don't know any cooking games other than the one in Ishin and the one in Suikoden. So yeah, I don't know much about those. And then we have the next one, the Runeterran Royal Rumble. So Soul Fighter, Grand Reckoning, Luchador, Gladiators in general. So you see stuff like Brawler Vi, Viscera Shinjao, Soul Fighter Set, Grand Reckoning, Katarina. Well, the Black Rose skins are I consider them part of the Grand Reckonings, but you would see Grand Reckoning Rel, Grand Reckoning Talon, stuff like that, as well as the Nar, Mundo, and Volibear skins. So the theme there is anybody who is a gladiator or a pit fighter in general, or any of the three big skins related to that. Next one, Sentinels of Light versus the Shadow Isles. The theme there is Castlevania or Neo. I will say this may actually be Halloween 2026, because that may actually be more of a Ruination theme one. So Sentinels of Light versus Viego. And our last one, as of my notes, Star Guardians. Each team. So because we have almost every single skin, so it'll be Star Guardians versus Star Nemesis. So against Fiddle and Morgana, as well as against the Dark Star and the Void. The theme there, Power Rangers or Sailor Moon. Now, again, I have to remind you, these themes are only working. It could change, it could not, I don't know. These are just the vague ideas I had in mind with them. But yeah, those are potential ones. I cannot be sure which is coming. However, I do think we could do the Dark Souls one. Mostly because I found a generator online that allows you to make boss life bars and boss bars in general for any of the From Software Souls games, which would help this immensely. So yeah, if any of these sound cool, please let me know. Just let me know in the comments. I may put up a poll explaining this is the list that came from this retrospective. Just let me know. Just let me know what you think might be good. I'll take it into account because again, I do not know for sure which one I'm going to go with. You got to remember, some of these are based around a few factors. One, how much fun will I have playing the champs that get included by virtue of being in the skin set or the thematic set. 2, how long would it take to figure out a theme? 3, what would the theme be? Like for example, Animal Squad could also be Power Rangers. And hey, I don't know if I want to do a Power Rangers one theme or not, and I'm not sure I want to do XCOM. Both are equally valid for this, as an example. And Leona, Clips versus the Leona and the Eclipse Knights. Hey, Dark Souls and Neo. That's a pretty easy one there because I can play most of these champs, and I do have footage from a lot of these. Like I believe I still have Blood Moon Aatrox footage as an example. And along the way I have been collecting some of these. The only ones I know I don't have any footage of would be Postfire, as well as the Postfire Israel and Project Yasuo. I have not been getting those at all in ARAM, and I don't want to go in the arena with them, you know? Because I'm not very good at Ezreal. We've seen this before. But yeah, anyway, that concludes the retrospective. I know it's long, and there's a lot of timestamps, so you don't have to watch the entire thing. I would appreciate it if you watch the entire thing. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Oh, and before I go, our next montage, reworking Diana and then Kinkou Gaiden Part 3. We will be starting off, Season 2 with rework to Diana and Kinkou Gaiden Part 3.